Okay, we already went through that. Oh my goodness, you girls. Yes, what's up, girls?
QuiltCon.
I can't believe we finally made it. Before this whole trip even happened, this one right here called me up. She had this idea. Tell your idea to the people.
I thought we should do a challenge since the three of us were together.
The three quilt amigas.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is the first time ever.
And so I pulled out this book that two of the Quilt Amigas have. April and
I don't have it.
Tracy looked at it and said, I got this, babe.
She's good, you know.
We decided to challenge ourselves with this block. It's called block number 3. So we figured it was perfect.
I thought it was called Birds Fly Together.
Well, that was another.
Or wait a
book I
minute.
found
But
in
we
that.
like block 3. It's a Quilt Amiga
Because
block.
we're the 3 Quilt Amigas. So this is block 3.
Okay.
See?
I thought it was Birds in the Air, but okay.
Well, in another book.
Because I don't have the book C, so I wasn't able to reference anything.
No, that's true. So you're just magic. I'll make a quilt using this block. Block number 3.
And we had a deadline. And you know I love
Oh yeah, she loves deadlines. She loves deadlines, and I'm the only one that keeps deadlines.
I had a meltdown.
We are all going to do our quilt reveal here.
Here, that was the challenge. That was
Yes.
the challenge. You challenged me that I had to use the block. I had to use it, but I had to use it at least one time in my quilt. We had to make the quilts, and we brought them here, and April was going to show hers, myself and Di. Right
Like we've
now.
not seen them. We have no idea what they
Stick
look
with
like.
us.
So first of all, friends out there in YouTube land, I'm looking and I see her bag's kind of flat, and she's only got a stack of something over here. So I don't know. Why don't you take the show and show us your quilts from the quilt challenge?
I did a mini quilt.
It's a fish.
It is. I didn't
Hold
finish
it.
my quilt.
Hold it. Look at all those pieces.
You didn't finish your quilt?
I didn't finish my quilt.
That's okay. It was hard.
You're supposed to say, why didn't you tell me?
And you have a full-time job.
I do.
Okay, well, let me see it again. Your mini quilt.
My mini quilt. I have 2 mini quilts. I have this one.
Can I hold it for you, y'all? What do you
And-
think, Trace? Isn't that a cute
I think it's
block?
not done.
I think you're right. You like that one?
And I think our minds think alike.
Did you do it that way?
Are you kidding me?
Mine is in done form.
Okay, no judging, no judging.
What?
I have this beautiful case.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You pups challenged me to make this god-awful quilt block, and you all come with these?
Yes.
And they're beautiful. And
No,
look at
they're
April
not.
Lane.
No, they're not. No, they're not
Can I just
beautiful.
say- well, they haven't even seen mine.
No, they're not. I don't even want to see it.
Great minds think alike, same colors.
Oh, yeah.
Great minds think alike. We don't finish projects.
That's right.
We were afraid to tell you.
Okay.
Am I scary?
Very
Well,
much so.
Oh, look how small
In
mine
person?
is. Look how small mine is compared
Oh,
to
wow.
yours.
Yeah.
But this is not trimmed
And yours is
up
pressed.
because I went to trim it up and it was totally cutting all the points off and I was having a
Meltdown.
Okay, so I want to see the finished quilt because I bet yours is beautiful.
You all know, anybody that follows
You
me
don't
on my
think that is
anybody that follows me on my channel knows your girl finished her quilt.
That's right.
With
She
sass
won.
and
She
full,
won.
you know.
She is the winner.
I won regardless
Winner.
because I finished the quilt.
That's right.
The
Winner,
challenge
winner.
was to finish it and bring
Winner,
it here,
winner, chicken
and you know I
dinner.
did, and it's in this bag, and you know I'm going to show it to you, and you know it's fabulous, right? No, I'm
course.
kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, it's finished. Let's look at it.
Ready?
Okay,
Are
tell
you
me.
ready? So as Di said earlier, this is block number 3, or Birds in the Air block. So this is eventually how I ended up making these blocks and putting them together. You can see there it's 1 square, 2 half square triangles next to it, and then another half square triangle. So for one individual block, I needed 3 half square triangles and 1 square. So I did the 2 at a time method for the 2 half square triangles, and then I grabbed whatever scrap that I had to make that third half square triangle. Because I was making mine so scrappy, it just worked out that I could use my scraps, which is always a good thing, right? When you make 2 at a time half square triangles, you just take 2 squares that are identical and you put them together, draw a line corner to corner, and then sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both of those sides. Now for the scrappy one, I just grabbed up 2 scrappy triangles that I had and I put them right sides together, and I just sewed down one side and then cut it to fit like the other half square triangles that were in the block. Now it's important to note that whatever your square is in this particular block, in the way that I made it anyways, you want to make sure that when you're making those 2 at a time half square triangles, that you up the size about a 1/2 inch on those squares, the ones that are going to be connected from corner to corner, 1/4 inch stitch on each side. That way when you go to cut them down the center from corner to corner, you can trim them down to fit that one square, that you need to fit in this block. The design element that I chose within this quilt was to make all of these blocks different sizes so that when I put them together, they looked like their own individual piece within the quilt. And you'll also notice that I set them a little off kilter or a little off point, so to speak. And I'll show you how I did that here later in the video. But right here, I'm just trimming up these little half square triangles. For this particular block, though, I chose to put a focal point at the tip of this block and then add the same color around in the half square triangles, just to, mix things up a bit. I did finger press each seam after I sewed it. That helped keep everything down until I got the next 2 pieces sewn in the block. And then after that, I did nest them together, and they nested together beautifully. And that's kind of what you want to do here, because you don't want all that bulk when you go to free motion quilt or long arm quilt or however you do it. You want all of that bulk to be as light as possible. And that's what I'm doing here, is just nesting them up together. And then I will sew a 1/4 inch seam down that, and then we will give it a good hot press. Now I will show you how to do the correct birds in the air, or at least the way I know how to do it correctly, or how I thought it up in my head anyways, but that's later in this tutorial. It's important to note that a challenge sometimes could be in quilting that you look at a block, and if you try it and if it doesn't work out in your brain, you totally do it a total different way. Sometimes in quilting, that's the best way. Anyways, that's how my brain works, so that's why I decided to just do it this way. It made the block look the same as the birds in the air, sort of, but not really. I mean, the colors did blend together within my block, but I mean, this is a challenge quilt, right? So yeah, you just have to challenge yourself to look at it differently. And if that means changing the way that the block is sewn together or changing a component of the block, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's your quilt. You can do whatever you want. And this was my quilt, and I did whatever I wanted, but I still kept in mind that it was a challenge. So I did add in at least, I think there was like 6 or so or more of those real birds in the air block number 3 block within this quilt. So yeah, it is what it is, friends, right? So it's going to take 4 of the number 3 block, or birds in the air block, to complete the look that I want to have within this quilt. So here I'm just finishing up those other 3 blocks that I need to put in there. Now this quilt, it was a challenge in a lot of different ways. Yeah, that block was a pain, the initial block anyways, that I will show you later. But the challenge for me was that I am still in an Airbnb and I'm limited on my tools that I have here with me. Some of you may know from my last video that I'm having work done on my house, and so I'm here for a little while. I'm not sure how much longer, maybe a couple more weeks. I'm already back from QuiltCon, and so I'm doing this voiceover for this video. Of course, the video is already done and the quilt's already done, but I'm still in the Airbnb, and that's where I made this quilt at. So the challenge was to figure out how I was going to quilt this quilt. You know, I didn't have all of the normal stuff that you would have in your normal sewing space. So that in itself was a huge challenge for me. But you know what? You have to adapt. I mean, I think as humans in general, we adapt to our surroundings and we use what we have, right? The resources that we have at hand. And wait until you see the resources that I use to free motion quilt this quilt. It's so funny. I thought at first, how am I going to do this? I don't have my big table with me that goes onto my Juki. And the table that's there in this place is too high. And so I'm not going to be able to stand to do this. You know, I just can't. It's just too much. It takes a long time to free motion quilt. And, you know, I just didn't know how I was going to do it until all of a sudden the light bulb went off and I just used my resources. So yeah, stay tuned for that. It is funny. So if you end up making this block, you know, whether it be the regular way or the way that I'm making it right here, it's important to note that it is super easy to get mixed up. And you can see here, I'm in deep thought about what I just sewed together and which way that went. And, you know, truth be told, I did end up having to unpick a couple of these blocks because I was just grabbing them and not paying attention a couple times. And yeah, so I had to unpick. So you just have to be careful with this one. It's, you know, a little deceiving because you think, well, how can you mess up 3 half square triangles in a square? Well, you know, until you've messed it up, then you just don't know, I guess. Make sure that you press with a hot iron, you know, after each application here, like you see me doing. And I am opening up those seams in the center. And I did have a lot of seams, so they were kind of going every which way, you know, a couple times. But because the block is so tiny, you know, you need to make sure that you do press. And here I'm just figuring out which way I want it to go. And yeah, that looks good to me. I mean, look at how colorful. I mean, if this block doesn't make you happy, at least with the colors that I chose anyways, then, you know, I don't know what to tell you. I really did like this particular block because of the bright colors and just how well they all went together, you know, with the orange and the purple and the green and such. And yeah, it's just so cute. I mean, yeah, look at it. It's just darling how the orange comes out. And yeah, and then you're going to trim it and make sure that you have a 1/4 inch on each side left, you know, from the point there so that you don't cut it off. And yeah, cute. Now to make this block the right way, you'll need 4 squares, all the same size, 3 background and 1 in your focus fabric. Then you're going to slice those on the diagonal from corner to corner. Visually, you're going to see here how I put these particular pieces together. I take that background fabric and I put it with that focus fabric. Now the focus fabric for me here was the confetti pieces and then just that low volume, you know, white on white. So you can see I'm adding them up to make essentially a triangle in the end, one big triangle. And yeah, so that makes up those 2 blocks. And then I sewed them together. I first sewed on the 2 sides and then the tip. Then I brought in the confetti fabric that was, you know, the same as that little piece that I first had. I just laid it right on top of that confetti fabric and cut the size I needed. I know it's like mind-blowing, right? No, it's the only way I know how to do it. I didn't have a book, so, you know. Frustrating part about this particular block and why all 3 Quiltamigas had trouble with it is once you get it together, you know, because of the bias and everything, it does not turn out right. We were cutting off points, you know, and whatnot because of the stretch within the fabric is what I think it is, but I don't know. So if you go to cut this and you want it perfectly square, you may not get it perfectly square. Like that one on the right there is kind of jagged, you know, it is what it is. So yeah, that was the frustrating part about that. So now on to show you how I put these blocks together so that I could set them on point or off point a little bit. all I did was add 4 chunks of low volume background fabric to each individual square that I was showcasing with those 4 blocks within it. And you can see there, I'm showing you on the sides, you want to make sure that you're a little bit more in width there so that you can catch some of that when you go to cut the square of it. But yeah, that's all I did was just, you know, after I attached those, then I squared up the one end and then I added the next one and so on and so forth until I had all 4 pieces connected to that birds in the air 4 patch, I guess you could call it. And then what I did was just take a ruler and lay it on top to see how off kilter or how off point I wanted it. And of course, you know, I didn't have a big ruler here, so I had to kind of fudge and use one of my smaller rulers that was longer. And so I just cut one straight side and then I followed that straight side onto the next side. And it doesn't have to be perfectly square because the, you know, design I was using was anything goes. It was all sort of low volume fabric in the background and it could go any which way. It could be not a square, it could be a rectangle at this point. So it just didn't matter really. But yeah, that's how it ended up. So cute, right? Being off point a little bit. I really liked how that part turned out. This is what my design wall looked like after I had all of the main focus pieces in there. And I did add in a few of what Di calls little fishies there, just to add more interest and color to this quilt. After my focus blocks were all placed, then I just pieced a bunch of low volume fabric onto each of them until I got to this breakdown right here. So all I did was just attach until I got to this and then added all of those chunks together, just like you see in this diagram that I worked up for you. For the binding, I decided on a wider binding. I just really like that width of color all around the quilt framing it because I don't always use, I guess, probably, you know, borders and such. So yeah, so I did 3 inches and at various lengths. It didn't have to be a certain length at all. It was just like whatever I had scrap wise. And then I just added them together in this quilt binding on the angle. My tip here for marrying 2 pieces of backing together so that you have enough is to grab the ironing board in your Airbnb and use it as your extra hand helper table. This really worked out a lot. I used this ironing board a ton when I was making this quilt. It was just awesome to have something to, what you're used to anyways, in your sewing room to have your fabric lay on. And yeah, I am standing and sewing, and I did this most of the time on this quilt, except when I free motion quilted it. Yes, that's me crawling around on someone else's kitchen floor. At least it was clean, I think it was. I mean, I cleaned it, so hopefully, you know, yeah. A tip I wanted to give you here, though, was if you're in a situation like this, weight down the corners with anything that you have that's kind of weighty. I didn't have any tape or anything to tape it to the floor, so I just used that, like a stack of paper plates and a bin of food, so it really worked. Now here I forgot my fatty glue stick. I was so upset, so I had to use these tiny glue sticks to sandwich my quilt together. That's my new thing. I used that in my last video, and I absolutely loved how well that glue stick makes the layers stick together. It really does work, and there's no fumes, and you don't have to use that much of it. I mean, it takes like less than 2 big fat glue sticks to sandwich a regular size quilt. I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. I'm totally going to be glue sticking all of my quilts together because it's just that easy, friends. It really is. So here I'm just, you know, still sandwiching it all together with that teeny tiny glue stick. Yeah, I mean, I really got my workout in this quilt. So yeah, I think by this point, though, I was out of breath because it was the last corner and I was crawling around and I was using my arms, and mind you, I had just sewn and married those 2 pieces of flannel for the backing together while standing. So yeah, there's my out of breath face. Yeah. So here's the craziest setup that I've ever used for free motion quilting. That little balance beam bench ended up, You know, being my chair, it was the footstool or the coffee table for the living room, whichever way, you know, you want to use it. And then I had my Juki sitting on chairs. I had a chair behind me so that I didn't fall off that balance beam of a seat. I mean, trust me, I almost did once and I knew I needed a chair. Now, I may not recommend this setup for a new free motion quilter, but someone that's been doing it for a while, they could totally do this. But it was a little difficult. I had to get my groove. It did take a little bit. What I ended up doing was what I'm calling a triangle scramble of free motion quilting. Since the design in the quilt was more, you know, half square triangles and such, I tried to keep a triangle. It didn't have to be a perfect, you know, three-sided triangle or whatever. I just did whatever triangle in whatever motion size that I was, you know, that my hands took me. And I did end up putting probably some squares in there, though. I think I did, and some rectangles maybe. But it all blended together. It really, you know, went well together, and it was really super easy to do. All you had to do was just pull the quilt one way, right or left, and then back up the other way, closing it up, and then you could just continue on and make another one. It was really easy. I was so surprised at how easy it was. It was kind of like that last quilt that I did with the color wheel, where I did that geometric design all over in free motion quilting. I have to say that so far in free motion quilting, these are the absolute easiest designs to come up with and make as your free motion quilting, because our hands, you know, kind of go at angles and they're kind of jerky at that angle. You know, it just goes. I don't know why. It's when I start making curves and such where I start getting, you know, a little off. But no, this one was really easy. I would encourage you to definitely give this triangle scramble a try. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, and they don't have to be the same. That's the beauty. Are you ready?
Oh, I love it! Yeah, you would have won anyway.
Oh, yeah, you would have won totally anyway.
Wow, that
Oh
is
my
so
gosh.
cool.
Check it out. Look
You
at this.
did. This is all.
Oh my gosh, look, she did the same block you did.
Look at this. Is not. I love how you did that.
Yeah, it's all low volume background.
It's all
But it just
scrappy.
the way.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
scrappy. That is the original real block right here.
That's you made it small.
That's because, you know,
That's how
this is
you
a weird
roll.
block. Every time you see confetti, there is the original block.
I love it.
So, who do you all think won this challenge? whatever, man, whatever.
You are the winner.
I think that you all owe me something. I'm not sure what it is yet, but I'll think of it.
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
I'll
we do.
think of it.
All right.
But yeah,
So pretty.
that's it.
I think you should give it to me.
Do you want it? It's yours.
Oh my gosh!
Absolutely.
Oh my God! Give me a hug.
Listen, it's all done in wool. Wool batting.
You. Oh. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So sweet. I love
Now-
it. So
Three
sweet.
amiga, you're never supposed to favor one over the
Oh.
other.
Well, you came up with the challenge, Di. That's the gift you get. Right? Yeah. That's her gift.
to Quilt.
Right? Come on, we
Quilt.
got another couple days to finish. Don't forget, friends, we have so much going on. There's the 3 Quilt Amigas quilt retreat coming up at the end of April. You definitely want to check the information box for all the details. You want to hang with us, trust me. After you watch this video, you need to go over to Sister Chicks and April's craft room to see if they indeed finished their quilts when they got home from QuiltCon. That's where I'm headed because I need to see for myself if these pups finished their quilt challenge. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.